Alright, so I wanted to go over all of the wiring harnesses, connections and whatnot on this BlueGhozt setup for the Ford Fusion. So basically it starts with this here, which is a 12 volt to 5 volt step down driver, or buck converter as it's also known as. Basically you have a fused 12 volt connection that goes to your battery. Then you have a ground connection as well that can go to the battery. I suggest, however, putting it on the bolt on top of the strut tower there next to the battery. It's been made to be long enough to do that. So that's your 12 volt and ground connection. Then on the output side of the buck converter is where you plug in the BlueGhozt. So there's a plug for that. Everything pretty much has a plug that only goes to another correct plug for the most part. Alright, so you have 12 volts coming into the buck converter, 5 volts coming out to power the BlueGhozt, and then off of the BlueGhozt you basically have an output side and an input side. The output side is going to be two outputs, basically going to your passenger headlight and your driver headlight. So let's look at those first. So the passenger headlight, see there's a connection here that extends it to reach to the passenger. So passenger side is labeled driver. Driver side is labeled driver headlight right here, right? And that's going to connect to the back of the headlight on the driver side that also is labeled driver headlight. So it's one for one. Same thing for passenger. This here is labeled passenger headlight, which is longer, obviously, to run alongside the front of the car, which then connects to the passenger headlight in the back, which is labeled passenger headlight with the same connector. All right, so that goes one to each light. The input sides are also all labeled, right? So let's start with this one. This one here is labeled right turn, right? So right turn is passenger turn. So that's, you can see, extra long here to run alongside all the way to the passenger side. Right turn, which plugs into the right turn connector on the passenger headlight. So that's that. The next input trigger here is labeled left turn. So left turn here, same thing as what we just went over for right turn, but this is the driver's side. This here runs over to the driver's side headlight and plugs into the same connector on the back labeled left turn. Left turn to left turn. There's a second one here that's joined with it that's called parking. That plugs into the driver's side headlight called parking. There is an extra connector on the driver's side that's not on the passenger, and that is the parking connector. That's because you only need one light to tell the BlueGhozt to perform its parking light functions, and we trigger that off of the driver's side headlight. That's why you'll see 4 connections coming off the driver, but only 3 connections coming off the back of the passenger. All right, and the last one is labeled DRL, and that is this one here that goes to a fuse tap into your fuse box. You want to put this into the run start fuse, and basically what that does is when your car is running but you don't have the parking lights on, it basically turns the parking lights on as far as BlueGhozt is concerned to basically give you a fake DRL. So it's basically executing the parking light sequence just as if you actually turn the parking lights on the car, but it's basically you're getting dual function. Whenever the car is running, you're kind of getting a fake DRL because the BlueGhozt is turning on the LEDs on the strip. All right, now let's look at the actual headlight. We'll go over the same things. So here you have the passenger side headlight, which should have 3 connections. Like I said, the one that comes off of the output of the BlueGhozt plugs in, the passenger turn signal or right turn that plugs in, and then also you have one connection here for the demon eye. Now if we look at the driver's side, same thing, but you have one extra connection, like I said, which is that parking light labeled wire. So that's your fourth extra connection here off of the BlueGhozt, the parking light. Let's go over the last thing here, which would be the demon eye controller. So this is a Diode Dynamics product, and basically it's a RGBW controller, a Bluetooth controller. So same concept as we went over for the powering the buck converter. You have a power here and a ground. I suggest placing them on the same exact locations as we recommended for the buck driver. So 12 volts on the battery, ground on your bolt on the car, top of the strut tower. So that's going to power the Bluetooth module that you use and access from your phone. Then here you have 4 outputs. We're only using 2 because we only have 2 demon eyes, one in the passenger, one in the driver. So you have one that has an extension that's longer to accommodate running all the way to the passenger side of the car, and that goes to the passenger side driver here. So here's the driver, right? So a connection from the Bluetooth controller all the way down to the passenger side driver, and the passenger side driver plugs into that demon eye connection on the back of the headlight that we went over. I'll show you that here. So here's the connection on the driver, goes right into the connection off of the headlight. And the second connection is this ground connection. So it comes with a spade connector and T-taps, and you basically just want to tap that into a ground location or a ground wire. If you wanted to, you could also, I guess, break this waterproof sheathing off and kind of pinch that behind a ground bolt, or better yet, cut the entire connector off and just crimp on an actual circular automotive ground connector and use that instead. But regardless, this has to get grounded for the demon eyes to work. Same exact thing. You have a second driver for the driver's side, same exact thing. Alright, so the demon eyes, you would use the Diode Dynamics demon eye controller application. You can see that the controller comes up, you connect to it. In my opinion, Diode Dynamics, along with XK Glow, has the best and straightforward and simplified RGB controller application on the market. So you have a color wheel here, you have your pure white in the middle, you can define some presets, you have all your patterns, your custom show modes and stuff that you can add, music sync, and camera. So hit the power button, they turn on, and then teal, red, all my presets I have defined down here, blue, green, pure white. Go to custom mode, so I made a red and blue strobing one here. 4th of July, just blue, white, and red. And then 7 color crossfade. And that's the demon eyes. Let's turn them off. Alright, here is the turn signal for the driver's side, passenger side, parking lights, turn signal, back to the parking lights off. Alright, so here I'm going to show you, using the BlueGhozt app, how you would basically connect to the BlueGhozt to change settings. New update, we'll do that later. To change settings and do certain show modes. So here basically you have the first tab is your show modes. You can configure a whole bunch of different show modes. The second one here is where you define what your turn signal color and animation is what your parking light color and animation is, and then there's an optional brake signal, which is a wire on the BlueGhozt, but it's not hooked up to anything. Basically, what you could do is you could leverage that last brake signal input on the BlueGhozt, and anytime that gets 12 volts, the LED strip will turn to the color you've defined here. So it's like an override, basically. Here you have the array of LEDs that are configured and soldered in there. Never change any of that. By changing any of these little settings, you can completely screw up the orientation of the animations and all that. If anything, if you want to mess with that, try to learn what it does and what you can change, take a screenshot beforehand. That way you have the factory settings here that have been configured. That's not applicable. And then here I have all your settings. You can give your BlueGhozt a name. LED type, very important to keep it as GRVW, or else again the colors won't be accurate. Alright, so let's start with the turn signal. So we'll leave it amber because that's obvious, and what you saw before is the wave. So the wave is basically this right here. So you can see the turn signal does a wave function. Right now, if we change that on the fly here, what I'll do is I'll switch it to basic, and now you can see what will happen is it's just a basic turn signal. We'll switch it again to sequence. Now you can see it's slightly different than what the wave was. And all these settings, you can also adjust the speed and other little attributes of it. So here's a bounce, and you can see, let's change the bounce speed all the way up and you'll see the difference. Alright, you can also change how much it fades, make that all the way up, make it all the way down. You can see it just kind of does a fading pulsation. If we make the speed all the way slower, you'll probably see that better. Alright, and lastly, let's now do bubble. Just kind of sequences out from the middle there. Probably want a faster speed. We're actually going to use that. Alright, and then lastly you have rollout, which is like a reverse sequence. Alright. Now parking lights. So parking lights right now is set to scan sweep. So basically that's what that looks like here. That's on and off. Now if we change it to basic, you're going to get your instant on with a fade, which again is fully adjustable. You can change the delay and intensity of that fading. You can also go to pulsate. Just kind of pulsates on very slowly. Materialize. See, it kind of does a rainbow situation, and if we slow that down, you can kind of see that. Alright, Rainbow Road. Oscillate. And then last, stair step. And again, you can change the color. If you wanted your parking lights to run amber or whatever, we can go back to scan sweep and see what that looks like. Amber DRLs, parking lights, and off. Alright, so going over the show modes now. Here's, like I said, where you would basically create and define all your different show modes. So, show you a bunch of different ones here. This is called popcorn. Again, all show modes you can adjust the color combinations as well as the speed, waves, Cylon. So you can see that this show mode actually jumps between both headlights through the car. There's about 5 or 6 different show modes that leverage that functionality. Builder. So this is actually building a whole bunch of different colors. It's probably hard to see because I have that speed up so high. So if we turn the speed down, now you can kind of see how it overlaps the different colors. Kaleidoscope. I won't go through all of them, but just jump through a bunch here. Alright, and that's pretty much it. Turn on the demon eyes with it.